It's Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Corey and Mason.
Hello and welcome to Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mason Schmidt, here with my best bud, Corey Knudsen.
Turn that TV off.
As we get ready to drink beer and talk about movies. Today we'll be discussing what films we've seen lately, what films are on the horizon, as well as providing some updates on some physical media releases and the most notable developments in the world of movies. But first, Corey, it is Super Bowl Sunday.
Woo!
How have you been? Who are you rooting for tonight? And what are we going to be drinking today?
I am rooting for Kendrick Lamar
Yep.
to put on a killer halftime show. Coming off of a Grammy sweep, getting 5 wins for a diss track is crazy.
Awesome.
That's fucking awesome.
Everyone's singing his song as he's going up on the stage.
Amazing. So, dude's on a generational run. Can't wait to watch him. Even though I'm not thrilled about either team, Super Bowl Sunday is always fun.
Yeah.
Get together with peeps, get some food, get some drinks.
It's a good
time.
unofficial holiday. It's just so much fun.
See if there's any good commercials. We'll talk about some movie trailers we're hopefully going to get some footage of. That's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, great time. Love Super Bowl Sunday. But as far as this episode goes, we're actually splitting the beverages. I am drinking today an Orchard Blend Cider from Minneapolis Cider Company, obviously out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mason, what you got cooking over there?
I am drinking a Trail Magic Lime Margarita, which is a THC seltzer based in Minneapolis. I am slowly kind of working alcohol out of my diet right now as I kind of ramp up my training for my upcoming marathon, which is 4 months away. So already the idea of not having a beer or like alcohol is making me kind of scratch at the walls of my enclosure a bit. Because I would really like a Michelob Ultra right now, or just really anything, but I'm going to just see how I can do with just THC seltzers. I'm going to have to nurse this and drink slower, because I'm one of those people when I have like alcohol or food, just anything in front of me, it needs to be deleted as soon as possible. Which with a lot of these THC drinks, they're like, maybe just like casually drink it and sip it so you don't get just like surprised by a high that you weren't anticipating, and then you're just fucking like, whoa, I'm itchy. So I'm going to slowly be sipping on this throughout the day until I sadly have to watch my two least favorite football teams go up against each other. I hate the Chiefs so much as a Vikings fan, but also mostly as a Chargers fan. I've had to watch them be so good for so long. And I also hate the Eagles because I'm a Vikings fan, and just how horrible that fan base is. I'm so scared of the Philadelphia fan base, more so than Saquon Barkley. But
it doesn't matter if they win or lose. Philly is burning
Philly
tonight.
is going to be on fire.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad. So, yep, we're splitting drinking duties, getting prepped for Super Bowl Sunday. Excited to watch potentially some new trailers or some teases to trailers that will be dropped online after. But looking at movies we've seen lately, I was able to go out and see Heart Eyes, which is a movie I've been really excited about, directed by Josh Rubin, who made Werewolves Within, which is another movie I've kind of gushed about a lot on this podcast. Heart Eyes stars Olivia Holt, Mason Gooding, Jordana Brewster, Devon Sawa in a really fun supporting role. The film is about a Heart Eyes killer that has been kind of wreaking havoc on Valentine's Day over the past couple of years by stalking and murdering different couples kind of scattered throughout the United States. I think they show like Philadelphia and kind of like big populous places, and it's like, oh, where's the Heart Eyes killer going to be this year, and what's going on? And I got to see this movie, I believe on Friday with my wife, and it was a packed theater. And usually when I go to theaters, especially with horror movies, I feel like the audience is a make or break thing at horror movies, just because you and I had, I think, the worst film going experience of both of our lives when we saw Smile.
It was awful.
And it was just people running around and just like joking and talking just at normal volume out loud throughout the entire movie. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't, how is this just happening? Heart Eyes, we settled into our seats, and I could already kind of hear like the energy of the people around us and like the chatter. And I'm like, okay, well, don't piss me off. But also taking a step back and being like, all right, well, I'm seeing Heart Eyes. This is going to be kind of like a schlocky comedy horror film, like more fun. So I was trying to like rein it in and be like, you know what, just have fun with it. If people are being annoying, then maybe say something. But if they're just living into it and having fun, fuck it. We'll see how it goes. And the movie is a very fun, it's a rush of a ride. It's not the best horror film I don't think it really sets out to do, but in terms of like being a slasher, it really kind of satisfied me in that aspect. The movie's very funny. At least it had a couple of moments throughout the film where I had like some very hard, genuine laughs by just dialogue interchanges between Olivia Holt and one of her friends, or even between Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt, there's some really good exchanges and chemistry between these actors, and I like the crowd was getting in with it, like, oh, like just people just blurting out shit like, oh fuck no, and I was like, you know what, I'm anywhere else I'd be pissed about this, but like it's kind of working for this movie. Corey, I know you haven't seen Hard Eyes. Are you kind of excited to see it? Are you gonna see it? I hyped up Companion, and we'll talk about what you thought of Companion. I liked Hard Eyes. It's not the best horror movie I've ever seen. It's not the best horror comedy. It's written by Christopher Landon, which his track record isn't my favorite. But I love Josh Rubin, and it's a very kind of energetic, fun time at the theaters, although sometimes forgettable with an underwhelming kind of reveal of who the killer is. But are you looking to see it at any time, or is it going to be kind of lost in the shuffle for you?
Yeah, I definitely do want to see it. I don't know. I feel like the past couple weeks I've been like, I don't know if I'm going to see like a movie in theaters like Presence and Companion. I was like, I don't know, I might catch it on streaming. But then I ended up seeing them in theaters. This one I think I will wait for. I'm always down for just a fun slasher movie. Like, even if it's not as like, you know, memorable or as good as some other ones, like there's still, it's a fun genre. So, but yeah, I do want to watch Werewolves Within. I know you've hyped up that movie, and the chick from the AT&T commercials is in that movie.
Oh, I do not know her name either.
I think it's like Melissa. I just looked it up.
She is one of the most attractive people, I think, to ever walk this earth.
It's Milana Vaintrub. I don't know if I said that right, but yeah. So I just remember you saying that. I was like, fucking AT&T girls.
And she's really funny in the movie too, and it has Sam Richardson. It's a really good cast in that movie. And honestly, the cast of this movie kind of blew me away, especially like Jordana Brewster's in it, which every time I see her, I'm like, oh, Fast and Furious. That's the only thing I can like link to her.
Every like guy that grew up in like that was born in the early 2000s had a crush on Jordana Brewster from Fast and Furious.
For sure. So seeing her, I'm like, oh, where's Brian O'Connor or like, yeah, Brian O'Connor or Paul Walker's character, and just Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt are fantastic. Olivia Holt, who is in the Disney show Kickin' It, which every time I see her, I'm like, oh wow, like, oh, Disney star. That's crazy to me. But Mason Gooding might have stolen the movie for me. He is so charming and funny, and I've seen him in other films before, like in Booksmart, and I believe he was in Scream 5 and Scream 6, I think. Or I think he might have taken a hiatus. Oh, no. He got stabbed a fuck ton in Scream 6.
Somehow lived. That
pissed me off. But he's good in the movie, and he's great in this. He's so enjoyable to watch. So I think it's kind of a forgettable film at times. The iconography of this new killer is cool, but like I said, the reveal of who the killer is, I was like, okay, I don't really... it was one of the only other characters in this movie. Cool. Sweet. Whatever. But... like I said, it's fun enough. It's a good time, especially when you have the right crowd kind of hyping up the movie as it's going and as it's chugging along. So I would recommend it. It's just nothing earth-shattering. With it kind of being set around Valentine's Day, I was like, all right, I have Thanksgiving as my like go-to slasher movie for that time period or that part of the year, and I have obviously the Halloween franchise on Halloween. I was like, oh, finally a Valentine's Day slasher, and this kind of satisfied that itch, and so I'm happy enough with it. It wasn't the best movie I've seen all year. It's of like the 5 new releases, it's kind of right in the middle of the pack. But Corey, you got to see a movie that I hyped up a lot and talked about last week. What were your thoughts on Companion?
Yeah, so I finally got around to seeing Companion, and I'm glad I saw it for sure. I liked it, and again, I didn't know if I was going to see it in theaters, but I just heard you talk about it, and a lot of other critics too that we follow really hyped up this movie, and I thought it was good. I don't love this movie. Like, I'd give it a solid like B, I think. Okay. B plus, somewhere's in there. I think it's, and I don't remember if we like talked about specifics of the plot, but if we didn't, I don't want to mention anything because I think the trailers did this movie dirty.
Yeah.
Like, it is.
Stop after that first trailer.
Yeah, watch the first like little teaser if you want, but after that, like, going in knowing one of the twists wasn't really enjoyable because like it's revealed fairly early on. But still, it would have been really nice to not have that spoiled. So I think that maybe have been part of it. And maybe just my expectations going in, I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. And I think it is a solid movie, but I didn't love it as much as everyone else did. But Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, I mean, those are the two standouts of this movie. Their chemistry together was really fun. They have some really funny moments together. And Jack Quaid, I think, is just a funny dude in general.
Yeah.
But Sophie Thatcher, just as the movie goes along and as she kind of discovers things about herself that kind of changes her performance, get really fun. And Rupert Friend, also just a fun supporting role in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, just this Russian dude. So I liked it. I think it's a solid little. I don't know. It's not even really like a horror. It's like a thriller, thriller / horror, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I enjoyed it, but stay away from the marketing because I think that ruins some of the twists.
Yeah, because then you're kind of like you said, you're stuck waiting for like the other the movie and the characters to catch up with that reveal that you already know about, and it's just like, come on, get there so we can like talk about stuff, or I can see something that I don't know about, or that I can't predict. The thing that kind of I wanted to touch base with you on was it's one of the scenes where she's up on a cliff and she's trying to figure out what she can do and like plan out different scenarios, and it shows those scenarios play out, and I love that aspect. And that's I believe last week I referenced, it kind of reminded me of like Family Guy, like the way it's like would play out this entire different scenario and then just show like, oh nope, can't do that, oh maybe that would work, oh don't do that. What did you think? Or was there anything kind of inventive in this film that surprised you in terms of like what they did with her being what she is?
Yeah, I thought there was some clever stuff for sure. And yeah, there, like you said, like some of the humor kind of hits on like those beats of like a Family Guy-ish type stuff, which was funny. Not all the humor worked for me in here. And again, like I don't really have any major criticisms of the movie. Like there's nothing that really bothered me. I just walked out of it being like, I enjoyed that, but it's not something that I'm gonna remember all that much. But I think a lot of people seem to love this movie, and that's great. I think it is better than a lot of January movies that we typically get, and it was a very solid month compared to the last like decade of January releases. So even though I wasn't as high on it as other people, I think it is still really solid, and I'd recommend it if you're looking for just a fun little thriller to watch in theaters right now.
Almost everything in terms of how your reaction to Companion is similar to my reaction to this next film that you and I both saw this week, which is nominated for Best Picture. It is the final movie of that list of 10 that I needed to see to kind of complete that category, which is I'm Still Here. Directed by Walter Salles, nominated for Best Picture, Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, and also Best International Feature, which I always get a little annoyed when Best International Feature, but also Best Picture, so I'm like, okay, well then you're probably going to win Best International Feature, but then also Flo's nominated for Best Animated Feature, and that's Best International Feature.
And Amelia Perez.
So I'm like, you really I'm like, really, you guys just throwing shade, if anything, to Seed of the Sacred Fig and The Girl with the Needle right now. It's like, all right, well, those two probably didn't win. Anyway, so I'm Still Here. Saw that in theaters this past Thursday. Film stars Fernanda Torres, Selton Mello, and Fernanda Montenegro. It's about a mother who is forced to kind of reinvent herself when her family's life is shattered by an act of arbitrary violence during the tightening grip of a military dictatorship in Brazil in the 1970s. I heard so many great things about this film, mostly based around the performances, especially Fernanda Torres. So I knew going into that was going to be kind of a standout for me, and it very well was. But kind of your reaction to Companion of, I came out of it liking it, but I just didn't like it as much as kind of everyone else around me, I feel like. And that's how I felt about I'm Still Here. It is an emotional movie, and I think the film captures the 1970s setting so well. It also, and I was telling you this before we started recording, it made me like nostalgic for a place I've never been, like them in Brazil, and just their home, and kind of as the movie goes on, where their family's kind of forced to go and what has to happen. So I enjoyed watching this movie, and I think it is a very well-made movie. It just, some of the emotional punches I was really waiting for never really hit me that hard. Before I talk too much, Corey, you saw this. You and I both are on the same side of the spectrum, but you might have liked it a little bit more, I believe. So what are your thoughts on I'm Still Here?
Yeah, I really love this movie. I think, I hate to say it, but sometimes there's like Oscar movies where I go in and I'm like, this is sort of like just checking it off the list. Like I need to see it because it's nominated for stuff. But this one I was really surprised by. I first of all just didn't know anything about this military dictatorship in this time period. So I think I've mentioned it before, but I just love learning about history. And a lot of that comes through movies, and then I'll do research after it and just kind of learn about it through that, which is always fun. But this movie worked really well, and just, I don't know, it is like over 2 hours long, but this movie went by really quick for me. It was, I don't know, everything just really hit with the family relationship is the core of this movie. Fernanda Torres is incredible, and I'm very happy she got nominated for Best Actress because she deserves it. The dad in this movie is just such a likable guy.
Yeah, he's so endearing, and he doesn't have the most screen time, but he has a strong presence from the moment the movie starts, and it makes you really care for him.
Yeah, and there's just such a like nonchalant nature to like how this military is just carrying out these acts of like, oh, this person's gone, but like, okay, yeah, it's whatever, like it happened, it's fine.
Yeah, they'll be back probably.
But then you go from that to seeing this family of just like these children being like, where's our dad? Like, he just left one day and he's not back yet, and the mom's trying to figure it out, and it's just a really emotional story. And something that I was reading afterwards was that, because this is based on a book from one of the kids involved in this situation, and he was talking about how, he never saw his mom cry during these situations, played by Fernanda Torres. And then I saw that the director, Walter Salles, took out all of the scenes where Fernanda Torres cries in the movie to make her a stronger, more like accurate representation of what she was, which I thought was just really interesting, and that adds to her performance so much. And you'll see scenes where like it's the tail end of her crying, and you can kind of pick up on that, but she's trying to stay strong for her kids. And I really like this one. This was a really cool snapshot of history and just learning about this tragic stuff that happened there. I think my only like little problem with the movie is that there's 2 epilogues to this movie. I think the first epilogue works, and it's very necessary to kind of have some closure here, as you get a flash forward and see how history has dealt with this situation, how the family's dealt with the situation. And then you get a second epilogue that's like maybe another 5 minutes or so, and it kind of hits on the same beats. And I thought it could have been cut out because that first epilogue ended at a really solid point where I'm like, that's a perfect ending. Just like clean that up a little bit. But other than that, I really dug this one, and it's I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and it's climbing up my like ranking of the Best Picture nominees from this year.
Yeah, kind of what you said. I agree, and I didn't necessarily think about it until you talked about it earlier. But that final epilogue, that last 5 to 10 minutes, it was kind of unnecessary. I didn't necessarily dislike watching it. It is a retread of things that I feel like were already previously covered within the movie. Kind of what you said, where going into this movie, it's one of the 10 nominations, so you got to check it off the list. This never felt like that for me either. It was a very enjoyable watch, even though it's about really sad material. And watching Fernanda Torres, I'm so thrilled that she's nominated for Best Actress in a Leading Role, just because watching movies, I feel like when you know someone was nominated, you're waiting for like that big Oscar moment, like that, like what is their little sizzle reel going to be when they announce that nominee? And it never really like came for me. It was just so grounded, and her performance is like flawless and meticulous throughout. There's no like big, brunt, emotional, expositional like dump. It's just her dealing with things and pivoting and just trying to figure out how she can get her family through it. So while I didn't love the movie and it didn't necessarily like hit me as hard, I have a hard time disagreeing with you with like the praise that you heap on it. Because I like it, and it is a very well made movie, and it's beautifully shot. And Fernanda Torres is exceptional in this movie, and I feel like it's not such a flashy performance that I feel like we become so accustomed to, especially when it's this time of year, and you're like, all right, who's yelling the most in their movie? Who has a big monologue that is going to solidify their nominee or their nomination? This is a person, and this is a person going through probably the hardest thing a person could go through, which is losing a huge aspect of your life with no explanation. So I wouldn't be surprised if this movie grows on me more over time. I did enjoy it, and I saw this movie at the Main Cinema. I'm guessing that's where you saw it too. A theater that you and I have mentioned on this podcast. I love that theater so much. I know you've had a rough time at Anora with some audience members, but every time I've gone to the Main, it's people that want to see the movie, and I was surprised how packed my showing for I'm Still Here was. Almost every seat was full, and I got there early, and I'm happy I did, because I got there early. Most of the back part where I typically would sit, back middle, all taken up. So I'm like, fuck. So I just keep walking up the hall, and it's like traditional seating, like it's an old school style theater. And I'm like 5 rows from the front. I'm like, fuck, this is too close for comfort. But it was really refreshing to see how many people showed up, but also those are usually the best audiences. People that are excited to see a movie like this that is just an emotional drama that's in a foreign language. It's like, these people aren't going to fuck with me and my viewing experience. They're just here to watch a really good film. And I'm really happy that I'm Still Here was a good film. I just, again, want a little bit more of a punch, which, again, it'll grow on me over time, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, there's, it's, like you said, it's not like a flashy movie. There's no big, like, Oscar-y scenes. It's full of just small moments, and just one that I wanted to shout out real quick was just, like, some of the relationships between, like, different groups of people. Like, there's just a part where there are these, like, military guys in their house kind of, like, watching guard over them, and then they're just, like, playing foosball with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's just such a weird, like, there's all this terrible shit going on, but, like, in this house, they're just playing foosball. Like, they're just guys, but they're doing terrible things, but the kids don't know that necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's just a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think that highlights this movie really well, of just those small moments and very personal character moments.
That and those characters at that time, like, they're imposing, and they're to make sure that no one leaves the house, but they're never, like, threatening. That and the family, the way the family is questioning, like, their presence, like the kids are, and they're, like, confused by it. But Fernanda Torres is so, like, obliging and just, like, nice to them and kind, like, do you guys need food? And it's just, like, it's such an interesting dynamic to see someone go through when it's like your husband or the father of your family is gone and you don't have answers, and these people know answers, but they're not giving it to you, but you're still choosing to be nice to them. It's just like, wow, like, it just, that part was really interesting to watch, and just to see that dynamic, especially when they're playing foosball and they're like, shut up, like, it's 9:00, it's late at night, stop, like, and it's just blokes playing foosball with a kid. It's like, whoa, like, what is this?
Yeah, very sweet. But yeah, definitely, I'm very happy that it got a Best Picture nom.
Yeah.
You usually see kind of an international movie sneak in there into the 10s, so I'm happy that it's this one, because I think it's really good. A little bit more Oscar stuff that I caught up on here. I watched Maria, which you talked about last week. Pablo Larraín's kind of final chapter of his trilogy of important women throughout history after Jackie and Spencer, 2 movies that I really liked. This movie, Angelina Jolie did not get nominated for Best Actress, but it got a Best Cinematography nomination, which is very deserving. The movie looks absolutely beautiful. And again, it is just covering the last days of Maria Callas, who's considered one of the world's greatest opera singers, just kind of the last days of her life in Paris in the 1970s. And again, like, I didn't know anything about Maria Callas. I've never heard of her before, but I think Angelina Jolie was phenomenal in this movie. If she would have been nominated, I would have been cool with that, because I think she's really, really great. And I think you talked about it last week, but Cody Smith-McPhee plays, like, the personification of this drug that she's taking, which is such a clever way to display that relationship and bring something fresh to a biopic. And with, like, both this movie and A Complete Unknown, I think did a great job of focusing in on a very specific period of this person's life and not doing their whole life, and showing us the rise and fall and all this stuff, like a specific point in time, whether it's days or whether it's months or years, whatever. But I really enjoyed watching this one, and just seeing Angelina Jolie, like, in her house or apartment, just like, and you're trying to figure out, like, what's real here, like, is she, like, making things up, is she, like, what am I seeing? But I think just seeing her relationship and seeing how her, like, she flashes back to relationships over her life, you know, with the men that she was involved with, or with her mother and her sister growing up, or, you know, her sister and her kind of in the present day, and then how her relationship or how her stardom kind of overlapped with, like, John F. Kennedy, who we see in this movie, who also, just shout out to, I believe his name is Casper Phillipson. I was looking it up earlier. He's played JFK in 3 movies in, like, the last 5 or 6 years. He in Jackie, in this movie, and then in Blonde, the one with Ana de Armas, he also played JFK for a second.
Oh, really? I never saw that.
He just got it locked down for that role, which is great, because
he looks like him.
Yeah, he's great. So it was just really interesting to see her relationship with all these people over the course of her life, and you kind of like in her final days just reflecting on her most important moments in her life, which I feel like is you hear that like your life flashing before your eyes, like you're just going through everything again. So I think this movie worked really well. I was surprisingly like really engaged in this movie, and there's a very emotional scene at the end where she's just like singing and giving it her all, and just like tears coming out of her face that I thought worked really well, and was a great closing chapter for this movie.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're able to sit down and watch this, because everything that you say, I completely agree with. I really did enjoy this movie, and it's stunning to watch. It's about a person I knew nothing about, and I left the movie being really interested in the person, wanting to know more, and to see throughout the movie her kind of overlap with this, I think his name's like Onassis, this like famous entrepreneur or whatever. I don't even know what his job was, but just a rich guy who has connections to everyone, and then kind of how that links into JFK. And I was like, oh wow, like what a weird Pablo Larraín shared universe this movie has turned out to be. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. If you had to rank of the Pablo Larraín movies, kind of his unofficial trilogy here with Jackie, Spencer, and Maria, what would you put them in? What order would you put them in?
I think this would be third, but like
Okay.
I would say Jackie, Spencer, and then this movie. But they're all so good. Like if I could make an argument for this being my favorite, but I think right now I'd probably say that.
Okay. Yeah, I would. It'd be a toss up on the day because Spencer and Maria are so close in terms of quality and what I think of them. I might put Jackie is my clear winner, and then Maria, and then Spencer. But I feel like when I first saw it, I was like, wow, I really like Spencer more. Like this one has grown on me more and more since I've kind of distanced myself from watching it. But I'm happy that you're able to sit down and watch it. And yeah, it getting nominated for the best cinematography is more than deserving for that. One of the best international feature films that I needed to catch up on this past week was The Girl with the Needle, directed by Magnus von Horn. A film that I haven't really heard much about outside of its nomination. Like, I haven't heard really anyone talk about it. It doesn't seem like it's very widely seen or spoken about. The film stars Vic Carmen Sane and Trine Dyrholm. I'm not sure if I'm getting those right, but my best pronunciation, the film is about a young pregnant Caroline in Copenhagen. Takes on a position as a wet nurse for an older woman named Dagmar to help support herself. Dagmar operates a clandestine adoption agency under the guise of a candy shop, assisting disadvantaged mothers place their unwanted newborns in foster homes. Caroline grows close to Dagmar, but she is soon faced with the nightmarish reality she unwittingly entered. This movie, in terms of the films within that best international feature, Have I seen all of them? The Seed of the Sacred Fig, Girl with the Needle, Amelia Perez,
Flo, I'm still here.
Yeah, this is my favorite of that category.
Oh.
This like scratches on the door of my top 10 from 2024. This film is beautifully shot in black and white. I believe when I posted my review of it, it felt very Elephant Man in terms of just the black and white. I think Elephant Man, the David Lynch film, is one of the most beautiful black and white films ever made. And this is kind of on that same tier, I feel like, in terms of just the look and also the atmosphere within the film. But this film deals with very dark subject matter and very dark material that made me think of like Jennifer Kent's films, like Babadook and Nightingale especially. There are some truly horrific things in this movie that I had never seen before or have not seen it presented in this way, and I hope I never see it again. The reason why this movie is called The Girl with the Needle, there's a scene where you find that out, and that's hard to watch. I watched this movie with my wife. This movie is about a woman who becomes pregnant and then puts her child into the foster system, and kind of the workings of that agency that she works for as a wet nurse. And there are a lot of hard things that you see in this movie, and my wife was sitting next to me, and she was kind of passively watching it, and she would look up every once in a while during kind of like a more dramatic moment, and I could just feel like the absolute disgust. I could feel the stomach ache she was having, and I was like, "Hun, you shouldn't watch this with me. You should leave," because especially with kind of different displays of violence within this film, I'm like, "You need to go in the other room." And it's a movie that made my stomach feel inside out. But not only for the shock value, it's such a well-made movie. The performances are great. It's emotionally satisfying. It is a very like kind of dour, depressing movie throughout. But but it still has like a little shed of hope, especially towards the end, where I'm like, God, this is such a well executed script and such a well made movie. It's well shot. It's beautiful to look at, but it's hard to watch. I don't know who I'd recommend this to aside from Corey, really, in all honesty, just because if I told my mom to see this, she'd probably disown me. One, it's in a foreign language and she doesn't read subtitles, but also this is just such a hard movie to watch and a hard movie to sell to people. I wish more people had seen this or talked about this, because outside of this nomination, like I said, I haven't heard much. Corey, are you going to sit down and watch The Girl with the Needle? Please do.
I absolutely do. Yeah, I mean, this is one that I've worked my way through most of the Oscar nominees that I want to. There's a few left, and this is certainly one of them. Yeah, I saw the trailer before. I think I'm Still Here and Nickel Boys, so I've seen it a couple times, and I'm very interested in it. And I mean, as weird as it sounds, like I like movies that are messed up and weird, and just to see if I vibe with it or not. So definitely excited to check that one out. Another Oscar homework that I checked off this week, which, oh man, this is a fun one.
Awesome.
Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul.
Such a good movie.
This was my first exposure to Wallace and Gromit. I've never even seen like any of the other, like Chicken Run or Shaun the Sheep. I've never seen any of these from the same animation studio. So this was first one for me. What a fun, just like British comedy.
Yeah.
They're just like all their like lingo and just saying like, that's cracking Gromit, and all this just weird shit that they're saying.
There's no cheese in prison, Gromit.
I've made my Norbots Gromit. I've been doing that to myself in my apartment, just like doing a Wallace impression. So, you know, but this movie's so much fun. It's just like a very genuine movie, I guess is the best way to describe it. But yeah, I mean, Gromit is just fed up with Wallace in this movie. Wallace is just inventing shit and invents these little gnomes that are doing yard work and messing up Gromit's garden, which just like, he ain't about that.
He's like, this is the one thing I have that's mine.
Yeah, and you're fucking it up. And then you got Feathers McGraw in prison, who is just an absolute dog. He is just the coldest motherfucker I've seen in a movie in a while.
Dead stare, blank expression.
He's doing pull-ups.
Oh.
Like, he's picking up trash in prison, but you know that he's plotting some shit.
Yeah, he's doing something with that trash.
Yeah, he's just like, this movie is so, like, the humor just like is right up my alley, where it is very British in parts, but it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of clever stuff too. I mean, obviously all the like claymation and stuff looks amazing, and it's crazy that like the amounts of sauce that Wallace and Gromit have, like all 6 of their either short films or movies have been nominated for Oscars, and they've won 3 of them. Like, that's crazy. Like, they're just absolute units in the animation community. I love this movie so much. I was so surprised at how much I liked it.
I'm surprised that you liked it so much. I didn't anticipate you kind of rushing to see this, so I'm happy that you did, but I didn't anticipate you liking it this much. So please go back and watch Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I love that movie so much. And I think that, yeah, these movies are so charming. They're kind of the most, like, accurate, I think, comparison you can make is, like, the Paddington movies. Just in terms of just the charm factor, and just how, like, sweet and innocent, how, like, they have such a particular, like, witty sense of humor. And, like, Feathers McGraw in this film reminds me, not necessarily in, like, a lot of aspects, to Knuckles McGraw, or not Knuckles McGraw, Knuckles McGinty in Paddington 2, played by Brendan Gleeson in mostly a pink-dyed uniform in the prison. It's just that type of, like, perfect oppositional force for the two, they're like the main characters. I love Feathers McGraw. There's so much good humor just in, like, just shots at him, just of him, just staring. It's just hilarious. Just his blank expression, that when they see him for the first time and they don't recognize him, and then he puts on his fucking little red hat and they're like, no, it's him.
It's like the Perry the Platypus thing.
It's so fucking funny. It works so well. This movie is so charming. I'm happy you were able to sit down and watch it. This past week, again, moving just you and I both through Oscar stuff that we needed to catch up on, I was able to get a ticket to a streaming live event of Porcelain War with a little bit of a Q&A afterwards. This film is nominated for Best Documentary Feature. It's kind of what I've been seeing and hearing of going into it is that there's probably a front runner or one of the front runners for that award. The film is about just Ukrainian artists Slava, Anya, and Andrei choose to stay behind in the Ukraine during kind of everything going on with the growing jet fire and the shelling that's been happening. And defiantly, they work to find beauty amid the destruction. They show that although it's easy to make people afraid, it's hard to destroy their passion for living. And it's about mostly this couple that they love working with porcelain. They love making their little sculptures, and it's basically like how they bond and live together happily. And then everything that's going on in the Ukraine, them being kind of forced to either get the fuck out or, all right, you're gonna have to be part of our armed forces and defend where you live and where you want to stay. So this movie was so moving. It was also filmed so it's just so interesting seeing a lot of this stuff up close and from their perspective. There's some as they're fighting back against Russian invaders, they use drone footage drones just to drop mortars and bombs onto Russian tanks and units, and to see things like that, not like doctored up in a Hollywood movie, but like what it looks like in real time, it's like, holy shit, like it blew me away. It's such a refreshing and interesting documentary to watch. It's emotional, but it's also very hopeful, and you really look at these kind of harrowing acts that these artists are like, yeah, we just had to like pick up guns and figure this out, and we're lucky that Slava knew a little bit of military tactile and knew how to handle weapons, and he knows how to kind of lead this, but otherwise we're artists, and now we're kind of forced into this position to fight back, and it's really harrowing, and it's maybe one of my favorite documentaries I've ever seen. It was just there. It's so engaging. It's an hour and a half, and it flies by, but it was just so moving to watch. They do this really cool animation aspect to the documentary with their porcelain creatures that they kind of create and carve and paint on, and they tell a lot of the story from their perspective through the animation on these porcelain figurines, and it's just so well done, and it's so nuanced and moving, but also it just shows like the horrible things that they're facing and having to kind of confront, because if they don't confront it, they're going to be forced out. So it's a really good story, and it's a fantastic documentary. And if there's any documentary, I feel like of the 5 that are nominated that you need to rush out and see, granted I haven't seen No Other Land, if you had to rush out to see one of them, I would say rush out and see Porcelain War. This and Sugarcane, but Porcelain War is the best documentary I've seen so far this past year, and it's one of my favorite documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is one, I mean, like you just said, if I were to watch one, this is the one I would choose. But you like this more than Superman Christopher Reeve story?
I would say so.
Okay.
I like this one that was the only documentary I had underneath my belt going into nominations, and then hearing the nominations, everyone kind of talked about, like, what about this? What about the Superman, the Christopher Reeve story? It's like, that was the one documentary you heard about, so that's the one that you're looking forward to be seeing, which I get, because that is a very well-made documentary. But with the documentaries I've seen in this category, I understand their kind of role being nominated. I get them being nominated over Superman and Christopher Reeve, especially with Porcelain War. But kind of opposite side of that, I did sit down and watch Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. Why the fuck is this movie nominated? No shade to what it's about. All the shade to how it's made. This is the most egregious, abrasive documentary filmmaking I've ever seen. It is just bombarding you with imagery, archival footage, just to try and paint a picture in a fun, flowing way, but it just doesn't work. Porcelain War, go see. Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. It's about jazz and the decolonization being entwined in this historical roller coaster that rewrites the Cold War, that led musicians Abby Lincoln and Max Roach to crash the UN Security Council in protest against the murder of Patrice Lumumba. It's basically like Congo in Africa trying to get basically independence. Interesting part of history I didn't know anything about, and I would be interested to learn about it in a different way than watching this documentary. This documentary, I feel like, does it no justice. It just bombards you. This documentary, the way it's made me feel like I had epilepsy. It's just flashing you with images and archival footage. You're just getting so many different perspectives, but it's failing to really outline what this is about or what's the issue or the current or like the timeline of events. It's just so much all at once for 2.5 hours. It's an exhausting watch. It was a movie I had to stop a couple of times throughout just to like take a break, not because it was like weighing on me, but because my eyes were tired. I was like, what is this? Why? It felt like I was in history class in high school in the back, and the teacher rolled in a projector, be like, hey, we're gonna watch fucking this documentary about Ernest Hemingway. It's like, okay, I'm interested in Ernest Hemingway. I know a little bit about his story. I'm interested to watch that. And then it's just a piece of shit BBC thing where it's just Ernest Hemingway, and it's just like that was almost like who's the actor from It's a Wonderful Life? Jimmy Stewart. That was like the best Jimmy Stewart impression good, I could have given.
Nice.
Not that he did BBC movies, but don't watch Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. Or watch it and tell me if you disagree with me, because I've seen a lot of love for this documentary, but I've also seen some people push back with kind of my sentiment in terms of like it's a movie that's the definition of style over substance, of the movie just getting in the way of itself, of being able to like concretely tell you a story. It just distracts, and it's just way too much, like I said, all at once. Corey, are you excited to watch Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat?
Yeah, not really.
No, yeah, skip it.
I don't know. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but like I always try and watch all of the movies that are nominated. I usually don't see a lot of the documentaries and short films. It's not a slight on them at all. I just like I'm never as interested in them as I am like the feature movies. So every year I'll maybe watch like one or two of the shorts or one or two of the documentaries. But I don't know. Just hearing your thoughts on this and knowing that we kind of align most of the time on stuff, I'm not rushing out to see this one. But something I did watch, which continuing my alphabet watch through of the year, which has been really fun and really great way to work through movie history, and kind of honoring the passing of David Lynch, which we covered a couple weeks ago. I watched Eraserhead, which came out in 1977, which, what a year for movies. We had Star Wars, we had Annie Hall, Eraserhead, just like a lot of classic movies that are all in the same year. I don't... This movie is just, it's very David Lynch, and frankly, I've not seen all of his movies, so I don't have, like, the deepest knowledge of his filmography, but I wanted to watch this one, just to check it off the list, and it's basically, like, this guy and this girl that have a kid that's kind of like a mutant child, so, a solid, like, 45 minutes of this movie are just the guy and the chick like laying in bed just listening to the baby scream, and we're just kind of sitting there as she gets mad and leaves, and then he's like, okay, I gotta watch this thing. And it's very, I mean, we touched on it when we talked about David Lynch earlier. It's very surrealist. It's just very weird and wacky and strange, and like visually this movie looks incredible, and that's what I will say that I liked a lot about it, is that it's just it looks amazing. But it feels, and like, I hate to say this because it's just like, there's so many classic movies that sometimes I watch and I'm like, I feel like I should like this, and I don't love it. And I feel like this one is just weird for the sake of being weird, and there's not like a ton of depth to it. And I feel bad saying that, because then I feel like I could read like 18 breakdowns of like, what the depth of this movie, of like fatherhood and all this stuff. But I'm happy I watched this movie. I loved it visually, but it was the longest like hour and a half movie I've watched in a while.
It is pretty wildly paced, yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I am eager to watch more of David Lynch's movies. I haven't seen Mulholland Drive and like Blue Velvet, so I want to watch those for sure just to see. But this one, a great one to check off the list, but not one that I can say I enjoyed, but I appreciated how it was made.
Okay. I really do like this movie. I will agree that the pacing of this movie is a bit wild. It does feel like it's 2 hours and 20, especially with a lot of like, you're just watching things happen and these people are just, like you said, laying in bed listening to a baby cry. I really like this film. It is kind of a hard David Lynch movie to get into. If you haven't seen some of his more, I would like approach like Elephant Man and Blue Velvet as like more of his like viewer friendly movies. Eraserhead is very out there, and it's I think it's really fun to watch because you can see a lot of his style and how it's formed throughout that movie. I love Eraserhead. It's not my favorite David Lynch. Elephant Man, and then probably Eraserhead and Blue Velvet, and then I haven't seen Mulholland Drive, and I just know that's going to be a tough nut to crack whenever I do sit down and try and understand that, because I don't think anyone, from what I've heard, can understand Mulholland Drive, which Eraserhead I do appreciate because it doesn't really give you a lot of concrete answers. It's just like, we're going to show you shit. Figure it out. Make up whatever you think this movie's about, which is kind of a lot of David Lynch's like forte of just like, I'm going to show you things that kind of loosely are connected, and you can kind of just get out of it what you get out of it. But kind of how this film deals with fatherhood and just kind of the horrors of that, I was like, this movie really works for me. I'm happy that you're able to see it. What would you say is your David Lynch film, like your go-to one, or would be your favorite of the ones that you had seen then?
I think probably Elephant Man. I mean, I think that's probably the one that I like. I've seen Dune, and like
Dune's fun.
It's fun in its own weird way. But yeah, I think it blends more of the weird with better storytelling and like characters that I'm actually invested in a little bit more. This one was just like, here's a bunch of weird shit on the screen. Like you said,
just watch this man's nightmare.
Watch weird things, and I'm like, I need a little bit more than that. But again, happy I watched this movie.
Okay. To take a break from all like the Oscar nominated movies and documentaries, I have like this growing shelf of movies I was interested in at one point, I bought and then just hadn't watched yet. So I was like, you know what, I need to work one of these into my rotation to kind of give me a little bit of a break from all the 2024 Oscarisms. So I sat down and watched Charade? Yeah, Charade. I almost said Charade.
Ooh.
Charade.
Wow.
I watched Charade, the 1963 film directed by Stanley Donen, who is the director of Singing in the Rain, which is my favorite film musical of all time. The film stars Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, Walter Matthau, a stacked cast. It's such a fun movie. And, like, I didn't know much about the cast of this movie. I just always heard about the title of it and seen the poster. I'm like, oh, okay, like, it looks pretty quintessential, like, 60s Hollywood. Synopsis is romance and intrigue ensue in Paris as a woman is pursued by several men who want to get their hands on a fortune her murdered husband had stolen. She soon loses trust in those who claim they want to help her. It is such a fun, like, conniving, just people after Audrey Hepburn because, like that synopsis includes, her husband passed away under, like, kind of mysterious circumstances, and people are trying to figure out where his fortune went. His entire apartment is cleared out. There's no money to be found. Where did this man's, like, $10 million or whatever the dollar amount, where did his fortune go? And then all these people just kind of come out of the woodwork like, he owed me money or he stole it from me, and they're all trying to get to Audrey Hepburn to try and interrogate her. Do you have the money? No. Where is it? Where can I get it? Who has it? And it's just a lot of, like, pointing fingers. It's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. Cary Grant is phenomenal in this movie. Whenever, like, there's something just so homey to watching a movie from this time period and hearing, like, Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart, you just hear their voice, and you're just like, wow, like, what a simpler time. At least it looks like a simpler time. Everyone's, like, so pretty and just nice to each other, and Walter Matthau is phenomenal in this movie. He is very, like, his character has a lot of weird quirks that they never explain. He's just, like, doing weird shit all the time, and it was so enjoyable to watch. It was refreshing. I've seen a lot of things kind of reference that this was the best Alfred Hitchcock movie not directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and I completely get it, just because it does kind of have that, like, almost spy, just nonstop distrust between characters and people going against their word and like just people stabbing each other in each other's backs, and it was just such a fun watch. I really hope that you sit down and watch this sometime, Corey, because I think if you haven't seen this, I don't think you have. I think you'd really enjoy it because it's just such a fun movie.
Yeah, if I could pick 2 decades of movies to, like, only watch from those 2 decades ever again, it'd be the 60s and 70s. I think that is, like, the most, like, imaginative and also just, like you said, just sort of simple, because we didn't have visual effects, we didn't have all this stuff. Like, they just had to write a good script, and they had to have great actors, and Stanley Donen directing Singing in the Rain, that's my second favorite musical behind La La Land, so, like, it's up there for sure. Yeah. But, I mean, the cast in this movie sounds insane, and just the story sounds really cool. So maybe on my next go-around of, once I get back to the C's on the Elephant, I will put Charade on there and watch that.
Definitely should watch it. It is just such a, like, fun movie. It has such a well-written script and just a lot of like reveals, not even like twists, just reveals, and it's so easy to watch. I love watching movies from this time period, especially like the 60s and the Alfred Hitchcock movies, because whenever there's like a fight, it's just some of the most bullshit choreography. There's a fight that Cary Grant is in this movie on like a rooftop that I was like, whoa. No one put any thought into this, or how someone throws an actual punch, or where people would land after getting pushed. Just like wild stuff keeps happening, but it's just something so like enjoyable within that of like, a simpler time.
There's something so, like you said, comforting about like old Hollywood that I absolutely love. Before we move on to new releases, I want to shout out real quick, just since it is Super Bowl Sunday, a very underrated football movie that nobody talks about, Draft Day.
Oh!
With Kevin Costner.
Love that movie.
For a little bit, that was like my Super Bowl morning, like before the game, like watch that movie. I think it came out in like 2013 or 14, something like that. Kevin Costner's just like the GM of the Browns, and he's just like in the draft room the whole day. That movie is so good.
Which no one wants to be in the
Nobody wants
Browns
to be on the Browns. Nobody wants to play for the Browns. Nobody wants to be the GM of the Browns. Whatever. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. Just wanted to shout that out for Super Bowl Sunday because, like, if you're looking for a football movie that's not Rudy, that's not, all the Remember the Titans, which are all great and classics, it's a great one. It's a good modern football.
That, and it's kind of it's not like a team needing to win a game in a movie. It's more of like the business side of it, too, which was interesting because it's like people putting in calls like, hey, we want this guy. Who are you taking? It's the thrills of draft day. If you're interested in football in the NFL and like watching draft day, like what team's gonna take what? Except now you're endeared to Kevin Costner as he's like, we need to fix this team. So yeah, it's a great watch. It's kind of a comfort movie for me too. It is kind of an underrated, lesser talked about sports film. So yeah, do give it a watch if you have time before kickoff later on this evening. In terms of new releases, coming out just perfectly in time for Valentine's Day, but doesn't look like in theaters. I wonder why. Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy will be releasing on Peacock to all the 6 people that have Peacock on February 13th. The film, interestingly enough, is directed by Michael Morris, which I know you're excited by that, or at least interested in that because he directed To Leslie, a film I hadn't seen, but I know you're pretty high on. The film stars Renee Zellweger and her amazing voice that we all love to listen to. Hugh Grant, Colin Firth, and Emma Thompson. Bridget Jones navigates life as a widow and single mom. Wow, her life has just gone into shambles right now. With the help of her family, friends, and a former lover, Daniel. Back to work on the apps, she's pursued by a younger man and maybe, just maybe, her son's science teacher? Ooh, Renee Zellweger saw Nicole Kidman do Baby Girl and was like, all right, I got an idea.
Yep.
All right, yeah. Corey, what else is coming out this week?
Yeah, I've never seen a Bridget Jones
No, I haven't
movie.
either. And
I've heard they're fine.
I've heard they're fine,
it, yeah.
Charming, like comfort watches for just a completely different demographic than me.
Yeah.
But I don't know what number of Bridget Jones movie this is.
This is the 4th one.
The 4th. They made 3. Okay, I thought this was the 3rd, and I was like, you know what, make a trilogy, fine. This is the 4th. They said, we'll add another one. That's kind of crazy.
Just on the To Leslie point, that movie's great with Andrea Riseborough getting a very surprise nomination a couple years back. Watch that movie. It's really good. But yeah, coming out in theaters this upcoming week, the first MCU movie of this year, Captain America: Brave New World, formerly known as New World Order, which I thought was a much better title. It's directed by Julius Ona, who, Cloverfield Paradox. Remember that one?
I remember the release of that after the Super Bowl.
Actually, yeah, that ties in perfectly.
Yeah,
actually,
I forgot
that was
about that.
one of the, if not the first trailers I remember ever seeing during the Super Bowl that said, watch this movie directly after the game on Netflix.
Yeah,
like, it's
now.
dropping after the game is done, which, like, now is a very normal thing to happen, but at the time it was like, whoa, it's coming out, a new Cloverfield movie's coming out now? Like, after the game?
That, and with, like, such a quiet production behind it, and, like, you never, like, the Cloverfield movies are so, like, oh, here, it's Cloverfield, like, surprise, like, it's out now.
Yeah.
Kinda, same with, like, 10 Cloverfield Lane of how that movie was made. But. Which,
the marketing will be remembered over that movie because it's not very good.
No. Yeah.
He also directed Loose, which I've heard good things about, but I haven't seen. So this is the 4th Captain America movie. Anthony Mackie's taking the lead role here as Sam Wilson. And we got Harrison Ford coming in the mix, replacing William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross. Looks like he's going to be doing some Red Hulk stuff, which, aside from that, I think this movie looks pretty sweet. The trailers have been great, honestly, for this movie. and have helped me like get excited for it. I think like the thriller and spy and like the way that they've edited the trailers has been great, which doesn't mean it's going to be great in the movie, but I am excited to see it, and maybe even more so, I'm excited we're getting together with a couple buddies from high school, watching this movie. We've seen, I've passed like 3-4 years every MCU movie with them, so it's always a good time, and like we have 3 of them coming out this year, so great to reconnect with them, just have some drinks, watch Captain America. I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I am too. I know, and we already got our tickets, so I'm stoked to see it. The Captain America trilogy up to this point has been my favorite MCU trilogy. The first Avenger, Winter Soldier, Civil War being my favorite MCU movie. So I'm excited to see kind of what this character is now after the Falcon Winter Soldier show and kind of what we have to look forward to. I really, like you said, I love the marketing campaign for this movie. The trailers were cut so interestingly, and I was like, damn, this is really like playing into the Winter Soldier isms of like that spy thriller. And Harrison Ford, I didn't love the casting initially. I was like, that's going to be distracting, but I've really kind of grown to, I think also with just how much I've been inundated with these trailers, I've had to accept him as Thunderbolt Ross. And I like the idea of him being president in this world. I think that's cool. I don't need Red Hulk in this movie. That's the thing that like sticks out like a sore thumb. Like just like I don't need Hulk in a movie that's supposed to be Captain America centric. And I also don't think he's going to be in the movie a whole lot. I feel like he'll probably be like a third act kind of beat down quick, and then he's like, all right, well, I need to go actually stop the actual plot from like climaxing in a horrible way, so I'm gonna go do that after I'm gonna
go to the Eternals
I'm gonna go
third act thing.
Which I'm happy also to finally get some context for what the hell's happening in the world of the MCU now that they're addressing the Eternals and what team
Celestial's just kind of hanging out in the
ocean. There's a fucking hand just sticking out of the water. Like, what's that? Like, why do we have new islands that just formed? Like, what is this? So I'm excited to see them kind of handle that. I'm a little trepidatious just based on kind of, I feel like there's been a lot of talk about production of this film and like reshoots or multiple directors or not having a good script or just like stuff like that. So I'm excited to just finally get in, see it, and assess it for myself in terms of quality. I also just recently remembered, because I think it was mentioned in like an interview, that Liv Tyler was going to be back in this as Betty Ross, and that is so cool to me because like a character or an actress I never thought to see again in the MCU, and I'm excited to see them bring that relationship, hopefully that dynamic back between these two characters of Thaddeus Ross and Betty. Is it Betsy or Betty Ross?
I think Betty.
Okay, I thought Betty too. Between Thaddeus Ross and Betty Ross, because in The Incredible Hulk, which I think is a bit of an underrated MCU movie, I really like that dynamic. So I'm excited to see now that her dad's president and can Hulk out, how she's going to be like, oh yeah, Dad, this is cool. Yeah, keep that up.
Isn't Tim Blake Nelson? He's
also supposed to be back as the leader. Right? Yeah. So
we saw his head on the floor
at the end of Incredible Hulk. Yeah, getting like, big, and he's like kind of smiling.
Back.
So there's so many like question marks about this movie too. I'm happy that they've kind of name dropped like adamantium, and we're addressing Tiamat being in the ocean with his hand fucking peeking through. So I'm excited to see how they're gonna incorporate that. It feels like there's a lot of things that this film has to juggle though, in terms of being a Captain America movie with Red Hulk, and now you have to address the Eternals, and we're bringing back Liv Tyler and possibly introduce adamantium and whatever that means in terms of the greater MCU of X-Men, or how this is going to connect and move the franchise forward after this point. So I'm a little trepidatious, but I'm really excited to sit down and finally watch it. I started watching a little bit of First Avenger earlier this week when I was doing my taxes, and then I eventually had to just pause First Avenger because I wasn't doing my taxes at all. I was just watching the movie. But yeah, can't wait for Captain America Brave New World and to watch it with you and our two buddies. Aside from that, I will have to rush out and do a Thursday night viewing of Paddington in Peru, as that comes out this week, which is the third film in this just charming, near perfect family film franchise. I love the first two Paddington movies. Film stars Ben Whishaw, Hugh Bonneville, Emily Mortimer. Paddington returns to Peru to visit his beloved Aunt Lucy, who now resides at the home for retired bears. With the Brown family in tow, a thrilling adventure ensues when a mystery plunges them into an unexpected journey. If that synopsis didn't like kind of make you smile, like, this movie is a storybook for kids. It's just so, like, I can't wait. I have my ticket for Thursday night to go see it. Like I said, I love the first two Paddington films. It's just so charming. They're like the go-to rainy day or like bad day movie just because they're so bright and cheery. They're kind of like that Wallace and Gromit vibe that you were talking about earlier. Corey, are you excited to... I know you haven't seen any of the Paddington movies, so are you going to try and rush through and watch all those before you see Paddington in Peru?
100%. I've been meaning to watch them for a long time, and this is obviously a great opportunity, so I'm going to watch through those. I've heard you and everybody else gush about these movies for so long, so I'll watch those, go see this one in theaters. I'm excited for it. It looks very charming and delightful, and, again, some good British just charm and humor.
Wit, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of the last big thing coming out this week is The Gorge, or as my coworker said when he saw the trailer, the George. But it's coming out on Apple TV Plus. I think it's on Friday. Initially, a lot of like straight to streaming stuff I'm not like thrilled about, but this one caught my eye because Scott Derrickson is directing it, who directed my favorite horror movie of all time, Sinister. He's also done Doctor Strange, The Black Phone, so he's got a good catalog of movies. But we got Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy in this movie, and it's two operatives that are on opposite sides of a mysterious gorge, and there's evil within, and they must work together to survive. I mean, it sounds like a fine enough movie, but again, it sounds like what would have been a straight-to-DVD release, but is now a straight-to-streaming. I like the cast. I like the director. Sounds like it could be a decent action movie, but I'm not rushing out to see this one, really.
Yeah, I didn't even watch the trailer. I just heard about Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy. I heard about the title. I didn't know it was going to Apple TV Plus. I didn't even know when it was coming out. So that it's coming out this week and it's going straight to streaming, I kind of just treat that like a straight to DVD or straight to or a TV movie, honestly, at this point, to where I don't really have that same anticipation or excitement that I do for a theatrical released movie. Not that necessarily means the quality is going to be worse because it's on straight to streaming, but maybe I'll catch it eventually. You mentioned Scott Derrickson. Sinister is amazing. One of like the last like true scary movies I can think of. I love his Doctor Strange. Black Phone didn't entirely work for me, but that wasn't because of him. I think he's a phenomenal director, and this is a stacked cast. If I mention that Anya Taylor-Joy is in a new movie, then my wife might make me have to sit down and watch it with her. So maybe I'll end up watching The Gorge and love it or something like that. But moving on from all the new releases that are coming in the world of movies, we have a little bit of a physical media roundup, which I'll look at our show notes leading up to like when we record. I'll be like, I haven't bought anything this week, and then I was like, I did this last night. I was laying in bed. I'm like, I haven't bought anything this week, but I also just spent 2 hours and did my taxes. So Mason deserves a reward. So I ordered Scanners, the David Cronenberg film. I got the Blu-ray Criterion. Hopefully we'll have that actually later on today. I also went through and ordered, because I'm on a little bit of a Walter Matthau kick because of Charade, I ordered The Odd Couple on Blu-ray because I also love Jack Lemmon and their dynamic. I love Grumpy Old Men too. That is such an underrated, funny, like comedy classic that I feel like our generation doesn't really talk much about, but I'm excited to see The Odd Couple. I love their pairing. And then I also ordered the Blu-ray Criterion of the movie Cure, which is a horror film that I have only heard just phenomenal things about. I've never seen it. And it's kind of been in that horror genre, one of like kind of the stains that I'm like, I need to address this. I need to go see this movie. So I'm excited to sit down and watch that once that arrives as well this week. Corey, anything for you or anything that you're looking forward to potentially purchasing?
Nothing for me this week. I went out and bought a bunch of Coors and a bunch of lemon drop shots at the bar the other night, so that's kind of where my budget went to. But I mean, I'm looking to catch up on some 2024 stuff. Conclave, I definitely want to get, and just some of the other kind of Best Picture ones. I need to get Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I've been in the mood to rewatch that movie, so want to just kind of pick through some of last year's movies and work on those.
Well, speaking of Conclave, in terms of new Blu-rays and 4Ks releasing this week on February 11th, Conclave will be released on 4K, which I'm still kind of, why didn't they just release the 4K when they released the Blu-ray, but whatever. That I actually pre-ordered and I got already, so I'm excited to have that in my collection now. John Carpenter's Vampires will be coming out on 4K. Kind of maybe one of the lesser talked about John Carpenter films. Not one of my favorites, but still, like every John Carpenter film, I'm like, I like this. It's just such a fun vibe and fun horror films that he makes. The Nice Guys on 4K, underrated movie. The Last Voyage of Demeter on 4K, as well as Pretty in Pink on 4K. Of those films, which one? I'm going to take Conclave out, just because I know you're going to probably get that here relatively soon. Of those other films I mentioned, which one would you be getting first?
I think probably Nice Guys, which I like that movie, and I watched it when it first came out in 2016. But I need to rewatch it though because I feel like I'll like it a lot more on a rewatch.
I remember that movie being so fucking funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are hilarious in that movie. So yeah, I definitely would look to pick that one up. Moving into some movie news. Holy fuck!
Big trailer week.
The Fantastic Four, First Steps, got the first trailer. Oh my goodness, this is my most anticipated movie for this year. I love the retro 60s futuristic vibe of even before this trailer came out, just hearing that that's what it was about. I loved that concept. Seeing this trailer in action, it just confirms why this cast is perfect, and I think that they're all incredible. You see just like that 60s vibe. You see, this is one where multiverse stuff, I'm a little bit like, I can take it or leave it. But this one makes sense for being like, this is its own thing before they come into the MCU and to the main timeline or whatever. But this trailer works so well for me. I was so excited watching it. And like, it's been a second since I've watched a trailer and been like that stoked for a movie. The music by Michael Giacchino, I think, is incredible. It makes so much sense for him, having previously worked on some of the Spider-Man movies in the MCU. But also on The Incredibles, which is another family of 4 superheroes, and that like again has like a kind of 60s vibe to that score as well. So that's super fun. I think just seeing a little hint of Galactus is great. You see John Malkovich with a beard. Who's he playing? I don't know, not sure. But I mean, Vanessa Kirby honestly is like the casting that I think I'm most excited about as Sue Storm. I think she's going to be like the emotional like weight of this movie, and like, we're a family, we need to do this as a family together. This trailer worked so well for me.
Yeah, I love seeing Herbie.
I
don't know if they've come out and said who's doing the voice of Herbie. If that's Paul Walter Hauser, hell yeah, that'd be hilarious. But I just like that dynamic, that scene with the Thing and Herbie in the kitchen. I'm so sold on this movie. I was sold on it before this trailer, so I was really just kind of excited to see what really all we were going to get in this first trailer. And I was surprised with how much we saw. We saw a lot of Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch, him taking flight, and those shots of him in the sky flying. I'm like, this is already the best I think the Human Torch has ever looked on screen. I love the aesthetic. I love the style of it. The music, like you said, is just so phenomenal and fits the tone and the time period so perfectly. The one thing about this film that hasn't fully gelled with me quite yet, and it worked a little bit better, and I'm starting to kind of come around to it more after this trailer, is the casting of Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I still didn't, like, when they announced that, I was like, okay, he makes sense for someone to go, like, to cast him in this movie, but I don't think that he's like top choice for a Reed Richards, and it's something that I'm kind of having to get used to. But after seeing kind of the way the trailer really opens up with the story, and you see Reed and Sue walking around kind of being interviewed as, like, they're basically celebrities in this world, and they're like, we make sure to have dinner every Sunday, or 7 on every Sunday with all of us and talk. And I was like, wow, I really I'm starting to get this. Like, they do feel more of like a unit. The casting I'm the most excited about is Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch. Can't wait to see that. I'm excited to see more of how they handle Pedro Pascal's stretching, because I don't think that's ever really looked good in film. I think it looks really wonky in the Tim Story early 2000s Fantastic Four films, and while I am one of, if not the only defender of Fant Four Stick, the stretching doesn't look great in that either. So how do you make that comic accurate without having it just immediately take you out of the movie? So we've seen all the other power sets from these different characters. It's just like Reed Richards stretching. What's that going to look like? I'm a little intrigued on how they're going to
may still be working on some of those VFX. But
and I'm excited to see more of like Sue Storm, like the invisibility, but also the force fields and stuff like that. Aside from that, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit of a teaser of that of this, or more potential footage for Fantastic Four: The First Steps, maybe potentially later on tonight during the Super Bowl. I would love to see a little bit of like a 15-second, even if it's mostly just like a sizzle reel recapping this trailer. I'd be like, all right, sweet. Happy to see it again. The tone of this is perfect. And another big trailer that dropped this week for a movie I have almost no interest in, but always will rake in just probably $1 billion, is Jurassic World Rebirth. put out its first trailer. The only reason I will potentially see this movie is the director of it, Gareth Edwards. I have confidence in what he's able to achieve in terms of filmmaking and visual effects. The creator was phenomenal. His Godzilla film is phenomenal. I'm really... Yeah, I didn't even sit down to watch this trailer. It has a stacked cast. It has a decent director, but I think Jurassic Park, which I might be in the minority on. I don't love that movie. It is really good, and I get why it's a classic, but it's not a classic to me. But I think that's where you stop these movies, because how many times can there be dinosaurs on an island that we're going to fuck with again for some reason? Which, like, from what I've heard about this trailer, it's, we can cure a disease, but Corey, I know you watched this trailer and you were feeding me information before we started recording about, there's another island.
There's another one.
Yeah. So, Corey, what are your thoughts on this trailer?
Jurassic Park is in my top 10 movies of all time. I absolutely love that movie. I think it's a perfect adventure, thriller, sort of horror movie.
I wish those kids died in that movie.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I can't stand the kids in that movie.
Just the screaming, or
the screaming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I get to that part, I'm like, I can turn it off. I know what happens.
Why are you kids screaming at a dinosaur? Yeah, right?
Okay. Subtle. It's not what they're doing, it's how they're doing it.
Fair enough.
Scream quieter, please. Anyways, the trailer.
I love the original movie. I think Lost World is kind of underrated. This movie's kind of solid. And then a lot of the other ones, Jurassic World, the first one, I think is pretty fun.
Fun enough.
I like that movie. The last two have not been very fun, so this one at least looks a little bit better. The thing that I'm most excited about from this movie is that they're taking some scenes from the original book, which I've actually read the two Jurassic Park books, and they're great. I love them. But they're taking a scene specifically on like a raft where they're going through and like the dinosaurs are trying to get at them while they're on the water, which sounds great, and they never put into the original movie, obviously. So you see a little bit of that in this trailer, which I'm excited about, and if they do more of that. David Koepp is also writing this movie, which he wrote the original film as well, so that's great. And, it's going to be another Jurassic movie of fighting dinosaurs and some hybrids of combining some fucking whatever velociraptors and T-Rex and whatever else. I always get excited for these movies because I have hope that they can get back to being good.
Correct the
just
quality.
Be better than Fallen Kingdom, where you're in like a basement with dinosaurs as they're like auctioning off dinosaurs for like $1 million, which is just like really cheap.
Yeah, for a dinosaur.
They were like $1 million. I'm like, that's it? Like, that's all you're bidding on this thing?
I ain't got $1 million, but that's all it takes.
And then Dominion was just about locusts, which was really weird. So, I don't know why. But
I definitely didn't see Dominion. I saw bits of Fallen Kingdom, but I've never seen a Jurassic World movie in theaters, and I don't know if this... Maybe I just go and see it just so that I have that stat of being able to say I've seen one of these in theaters. People just love seeing dinosaurs fuck shit up, so maybe it'll be good. I'm really hoping that this film, which I did actually enjoy in Jurassic World, was that there's a decent amount of cannon fodder. Like, these dinosaurs are going to fuck up some people and eat some people. So I'm hoping that this movie has at least some good people to just tear to the wayside and just get annihilated so that the film is enjoyable enough. I figured that this movie is going to be similar to just about the more recent ones, just in terms of quality. I just have more hope that Gareth Edwards will make something a little bit more visually appealing, at least, if not, hopefully a little bit more well-rounded and stylistically kind of something that's different from what we've seen before, and especially with, let's keep trying with these fucking dinosaurs. Let's see what we got here.
I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for the Jurassic movies. They're, no matter how bad they are, I'm always going to be excited to see it for whatever reason. But getting into a big award season weekend, a lot of predictors for the Oscars here. First off, we had the Critics' Choice Awards on Friday nights after being delayed a few times because of the LA wildfires. Finally got the award ceremony. And Nora was a big winner of the night. It got Best Picture. That was the only award it got, actually. John M. Chu won for Best Director, which he very funnily, in his speech, he's like, I'm going to win the Oscar. But he's not nominated, so... Adrian Brody, Demi Moore, Kieran Culkin, Zoe Saldana. Nothing too surprising there. or a couple things I was really happy about was Maisie Stella winning Best Young Actress for My Old Ass, which I thought was great and very deserving. And then both Colin Farrell and Krista Milioti winning for The Penguin was great and very well deserving as well. So, it was a fun show to watch. And I think Critics' Choice is, like, they have it on lockdown of, like, the pacing of their show. They don't do a lot of dumb bits. Like, Chelsea Handler's the host, and she was fine. I think she was okay. A few good jokes in there, but, like, they have it well because, like, they have to do both TV and movie stuff. So they, like, go through things quickly. They give them time for their speeches. I think it's kind of like an underrated format for an awards show. But, yeah, I was like, I don't know. You guys know that I don't like Anora, so I'm not thrilled about this weekend, which we'll get into in a second. But most everything else I was okay with as far as some of the winners.
Yeah, I think I might just move on into the PGA and the DGA awards as well, and then we can kind of talk about them all as a whole. So we can kind of get more of that rounded picture, because PGA Awards also came out, and Anora and The Wild Robot were big winners there. As well as the DGA Awards, we have theatrical film. Sean Baker won for Anora, and then that first-time directorial feature went to Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, and then documentary went to Porcelain War, which I'm thrilled by that. But kind of getting this big picture of kind of where these awards leading up to Oscars, where a lot of them are going, I'm starting to see some like front runners to where I'm like, all right, I think I could safely, when it comes to awards night and you and I are filling out ballots, I think I could have some locks on some categories, even if like it's not a clear winner. I'm like, all right, I'm confident about a choice or a potential winner. I love that director John M. Chu is getting some love for Wicked, because that movie is so much fun, and I love that movie from 2024. But also Best Actress, Demi Moore at the Critics' Choice is phenomenal, and I'm starting to really hope that she has a solid chance at the Oscar this upcoming season. Anora winning makes me really concerned. Not because I think it's an ass movie, it's not what I would pick for Best Picture of this year. You and I have kind of spoken our thoughts in terms of where Anora, at least in terms of like what we could assume the top 10 of the best, like if we were to rank those, Anora would be towards the bottom from both you and I. But it feels like it's really going to be between Anora and The Brutalist for Best Picture. At least that's what I can potentially see happening. And now with Sean Baker getting Best Director, I'm like, all right, well, you're kind of setting yourself up for Best Director at the Oscars. Does the Oscars keep Anora for Best Picture? Does it kind of split and share? Brutalist gets Best Picture and Sean Baker gets Best Director. I don't know. We're starting to see the patterns, and it's getting a little scary. Happy to see Emilia Perez on some of these big name wins.
Even though it is locking in, and Anora definitely had a huge weekend, it's still sort of fun in a way to have it be uncertain going into the Oscars. I mean, we have like the SAG and the BAFTAs coming up soon, but it's not like last year where it's like Oppenheimer's winning Best Director, it's winning Best Picture. So in that sense, it's fun, but overall, I think this year, at least just like the Best Picture nominees have been lacking compared to previous years, which that's a little sad. But I mean, award season is always great. It's fun tracking this stuff. I love watching the award shows. So we'll see. I wish Sing Sing was getting more love.
Yeah, no kidding.
Movie deserves it.
I am getting close to the end of like my Oscar watch through. In terms of the movies I've missed out that are nominated, I have The 688, which got nominated for your favorite person in the world, Diane Warren's song. And then I got No Other Land, which I don't really believe has much distribution in the U.S. aside from some theaters somewhere, apparently it says. And then what else did I have left? Better Man, the movie I was so excited to watch. I will also be catching up on that. But yeah, this year's awards, aside from like Dune Part 2 and The Substance, I'm not like terribly excited about a lot of the nominees. I am happy to see Conclave getting love for screenplay and some writing, and Wild Robot. I'm hoping that when it comes to Oscar time, when it's Best Animated Feature, that Wild Robot's able to kind of keep that momentum and beat out Flow. It'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to sit down with you and put our ballots in and compare them, because I feel like we're going to differ on a lot of them, because I think some of them are, even with some people getting kind of more momentum, I think when it comes to the Oscars, it's still a bit of a toss-up. Like, it doesn't always go the way you necessarily 100% think. So I'm excited to fill out our ballots and kind of go into that awards show just hoping for a good show from Conan, but also hopefully some winners that don't piss us off and make us hate movies for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Also, one last little shout out. The Annie Awards happened as well, which is like the animation, and Wild Robot cleaned up there. Got 9 awards, so that was great to see. And hopefully that can beat the stupid fucking cat movie.
Which you haven't seen.
I haven't seen.
But I will agree, it is a bit of a stupid movie.
Like, just watch a fucking cat walk around. Okay, whatever. Fuck that.
All right. I will say you're probably not gonna like Flo as much as Wallace and Gromit.
No, Wallace
Safely.
and Gromit was the tits, man. Like I fucking love that movie.
Put that on a poster. Wallace and Gromit. That's the tits for a movie like that.
Gromit.
Gromit. We've got called the tits. Anyways, thank you for sitting and having some liquor drinks with us for our 15th episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for more in-depth movie reviews and news, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast. I believe Corey is also working on our TikTok to get some more out of the theater reviews, kind of physical media reviews as well. In the world of film, it's not just about what happens on screen, but also about who's sitting next to you in the theater.
From Mason and I at Slate Night, happy Super Bowl Sunday, happy Kendrick Lamar Day, mustard! That's a wrap.